Hey everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. We're talking about emotional intelligence today. And emotional intelligence isn't just a buzzword. It's the foundation of leveling up your life in sobriety, relationships, and career. When we break free from alcohol, right, that's the get sober part, the next challenge is learning how to handle the emotions we've numbed for years. That's where emotional maturity comes in. That's the recovery part. And I'm thrilled to welcome my new friend and emotional intelligence guru, Noble Gibbens, on the show. Noble didn't just improve his emotional intelligence, he went all in on emotional maturity, redefining his relationships, marriage, career, his whole life in the process. And he's here to share his journey, how understanding and regulating his emotions empowered him to become a better husband, father, entrepreneur, mentor. This episode is packed with books, expert insights, and tools to help you build your emotional intelligence, giving you the self-awareness and resilience you need to not just survive, but thrive. Whether it's navigating tough conversations at home or staying grounded at work, mastering your emotions will take your life to the next level. And I don't want you to worry about taking notes, or I don't want you freaking out that you're listening to this in the car or while you're working out or on a run, whatever. I created a resource guide for you because there are so many great tools in this episode that Noble talks about. So I put a whole guide together for you called Building Emotional Intelligence for a Sober, Stronger, and More Successful Life. And you can get that at addictionunlimited.com/EQ. I will link that in the show notes for you as well. addictionunlimited.com/EQ. And that's your full guide with every resource we talk about and a little more information about emotional intelligence. And if you're looking for a transformation in your own life, you're tired of spinning your wheels and not making the progress you want, remember you can always schedule a free call with me to see if we're a good fit to work together to get you the results you really want and deserve. And that's addictionunlimited.com/call. That's always linked in the show notes too, addictionunlimited.com/call. And if working with me isn't the right move for you, I can certainly steer you the right direction and help you figure out where you need to start. addictionunlimited.com/call. Okay, let's jump into this episode with Noble Gibbens, EQ Gangster. Noble, thank you so much for coming on and doing this episode with me. I am super excited to share some good information about emotional intelligence with the audience.
Angela, I am stoked, lady. I am so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad I found you. I was really enjoying listening to your podcast. And I think so this is a great place to start. Why don't we start? Just tell everybody a little bit about you and who you are.
So, name is Noble and was a military guy, airborne ranger in the 82nd Airborne Division. Used to jump out of airplanes for a living. That's how I got to work. And let's see. And then entrepreneur, was in a business cult for 20 some years and did very well in the business cult, spoke all over the world to thousands and thousands of people as a result of my low emotional intelligence and my people-pleasing addiction and toxic positivity and emotional neediness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Did very well. So it's amazing how our dysfunction can lead to success.
Those are all great business qualities. I mean, they're great entrepreneur qualities for sure.
That's right. And then let's see. And then after 20 years of marriage, I yelled at my wife 3 times in 3 weeks. And she said 3 things. Number 1, don't ever do that again. Number 2, you've never done that before, which means number 3, you got more issues in Sports Illustrated. And I was like, oh, snap. You're right, babe. Went to therapy. And the therapist said, hey, Noble, let me introduce you to 2 revolutionary new concepts called feelings and emotions. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I wasn't issued those. I wasn't issued those at West Point. I wasn't issued those in Ranger School. And so that started my journey, 2 years of emotional fitness program that I put myself on. And all after two years of this emotional fitness program, all these areas of my life started to change, transform, and improve. My faith, marriage, parenting, finances, fitness, business. And I'm like, babe, has this all been because I've been emotionally dysfunctional? Now I'm finally taking ownership of the junk in my trunk. Let me start a podcast, just sharing my issues and stuff, because I can't be the only emotionally clueless dude out there. There's got to be other nobles out there like me that have had no idea. If I can reach them before their 40s and they can start their journey in their 20s or 30s, man, they can save a decade or decades of pain and dysfunction like I've had. So that started my podcast, EQ Gangster, my YouTube channel and stuff. And then now I do, do corporate work. Our corporate umbrella is called Arrowhead Leadership Consulting for any corporate stuff. But then the individual one-on-one stuff is through the EQ Gangster brand.
Okay, the one thing that I really picked up on when you were talking about all of that is that you said a 2-year emotional fitness program you put yourself on. And I want to highlight that because so often people are like, oh, I want to change this thing about myself. And they do it for 30 days, right? Or 2 weeks, a 21-day challenge or whatever. I love that you just said 2 years. Because recovery is the same way. It's like you don't get sober and go, yeah, I'm going to do this recovery thing for, a couple months or something. Like, this is a freaking journey. And the most profound change you will experience in your life are in those things that take multiple years. So highlight that a little bit for me. What was your 2-year emotional fitness plan?
So, in full transparency, I am very, very much still on it. So don't think that, hey, 2 years, I'm the EQ gangster. Like, I'm 7-8 years deep, and I'm still trying to grow my self-awareness, right? There's a number of areas that I'm still very much working on. So to your point, excellent point, Angela. It is absolutely an ongoing development process. I don't know that I will ever arrive at the pinnacle of emotional health. I think it's, in fact, my therapist, he was a 65-year-old dude and super guy. He'd been counseling people he's thousands and thousands of couples, 25,000 hours of coaching that he has done himself with other folks. And I said, dude, so how long, when did you get healed from all the junk in your trunk, as the therapist? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, when was it, after year 5 or year 7? You got healed and you're done and you're good to go? He's like, dude, I still have emotional exercises that I'm doing every day because I'm still healing emotion. I'm like, right, dude, you've been doing this for 25,000 hours. What are you talking about? You're freaking EQ Yoda. You should be tracking like a VCR, bro. And he said, dude, it's a process. It's a journey. Right. So anyway, that really gave me expectation management. That it's like PT exercise, right? Fitness stuff. I do fitness and I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu and work out and lifting stuff and walks every day. And it's like, well, when will I arrive physically? Well, I won't arrive physically. It's constant, my spiritual health, right? My spiritual, growing myself as a person, as a man, as a leader, man, it's never, that treadmill doesn't ever stop. That's right. It's a constant, you got to stay. Cause I'll tell you something else, Angela, left to my own vices, I am a very bad, evil, not healthy, productive guy to be around. Left to my own. So I know that the day, week, month that I stop growing myself, my weeds grow immediately. and I don't even have to try. It's my weeds try to grow while I'm actively mowing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
It's
yes.
I have to stay ahead of that game.
Yeah, 1,000%. I appreciate you saying that too, because I think, in addiction, people look at those of us with long-term sobriety, right? I'm 18 years sober and people think, oh, so you've got it all together. My work is done. And it's like, no, dude, I am a handful. Like, I'm not, like, this journey doesn't end. Like, I'll get real good at certain things and then I'll be sliding back on other things. So I got to go over and give those things attention. And then I'll get really good at those again and we'll get those back on track. And I look over here and these are sliding back. So yeah, it's an ongoing process. You're also triggered at different points in your life by different things. So in 12 steps, we call them character defects. My character defects are going to come up at different times in my life, depending on what's happening in my life, right? Like my relationship stuff is only going to come up if I'm in a relationship. My money stuff is only going to come up if I have some financial stress or financial fear. So we always have the defects of character. They're just going to pop up at different times for different reasons, but they don't go away. We get better at them, right? I don't use my character defects nearly as much as I used to. I'm better at managing myself and I have some emotion regulation, of course, and that helps. But yeah, it's an ongoing journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if I think you hadn't started recording yet, but one of the comments or phrases that you used was emotional maturity. And, pre-EQ, I would have told you, oh, I'm mature. What are you talking about, Angela? I'm a 40-year-old dude. I'm totally mature. I know what's going on. Man, I literally, Angela, I was a 40-year-old emotional 5-year-old.
1,000%. Yes.
Not even joking. I would throw adult temper tantrums.
Yes.
I had my own version of whining and pouting. It was literally a 5-year-old in a 40-year-old man's body.
Mm-hmm.
And how many of those are walking around all around us, right?
Almost all of them.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because another thing to consider, and I'm sure you can touch on this better than me, these are learned behaviors. These aren't things that we are born with. These are things that someone has to teach you or that you have to actively seek the education to learn. You're not born emotionally intelligent. You are taught habits by the people around you that are typically unhealthy, right? Because they're not emotionally mature either. So you take on those coping skills and ways of handling things and those perspectives and the character defects, right? You just inherit all of this stuff. And if you don't go out in the world and actively seek change and seek knowledge, you're not going to have it. It is a learned behavior.
Right. Absolutely. And again, I think, and there's people way smarter than me talk about this stuff, but like we as humans, our bent or our pull, our natural pull is towards pleasure and away from
pain, right.
Well, growth is pain.
1,000%. Yes.
Growth, and all the cheesy quotes, but it's true. No growth happens in your comfort zone. And it's true. Jiu-jitsu, I can't learn jiu-jitsu by watching YouTube videos. Like at some point, I actually have to roll with Angela. Me and Angela got to get, boom, we're going at it with each other. Oh, okay. So this is how she responds to this. Okay. Then she moves here. And then you have to get in that physical altercation, so to speak, in your training partner in order to actually learn how your body works with another opponent and different size opponents. And right, life throws all kinds of stuff at you, but growth only happens with tension and pain.
Yeah. And that's why nobody wants to do it. And that's why people don't stick to it, right? Sobriety's the same way. It gets real uncomfortable real quick.
Oh.
Because you're not used to it. You don't know how to do it. You don't know if you're going to be good at it. It's like everything becomes an unknown. Like maybe this is going to suck. Maybe I'm going to suck at it. I'm not going to do it well. Maybe I'm going to embarrass myself. Maybe people are going to judge me. All of the fear. Everything gets real uncomfortable. And then we immediately want to bail. Like enough is enough. I can't take it,
Well, if I can, one of the questions you asked is kind of what was your journey like? And you just hit on that point. I want to just share. So as a guy who until probably 40, years, 45 years, somewhere in my journey there, I had, like, when I say zero understanding of feelings and emotions, like I can't tell you how emotionally clueless I was, like, and how emotionally needy and people pleaser addict I was, and food addict I was, and like I had zero concept of emotion, zero. So when I was sitting down with our therapist day one, and he said the whole dude feelings and emotions, it was a mix of very, very intense emotions that ranged from terror, fear, anger, rage, guilt, shame, condemnation, embarrassment, frustration, anxiety, hopelessness. I mean, and every single one of those emotions, very strong, intense emotions. And then looking down the barrel of all of those emotions, Angela, and then realizing I have zero tools.
Right.
So I'm facing all these scary monsters for me in the flash of an instant. Once I realize I'm buck naked, right? The emperor has no clothes thing, right? I'm like, oh crap, I'm buck naked and I'm about to go into a war. I don't even have a squirt gun. I'm going to go fight these scary bad guys. In my head at the time, that's what they were. These scary, terrifying bad guys in my life that are 20 feet tall and big, giant muscles. And I'm this little skinny, weakling, buck naked guy with no weapons, no tools. And I was terrified is an understatement. Everything inside of me was like, Noble, how in the hell can you be a 40, however old I was, 43-year-old guy and not know anything about feelings and emotions? Like, you got to be joking. Like, am I getting punked right now? Am I on some TV show? Like it was, man, it was so to your point. Yes, I 100% understand why people don't walk this journey. It is, I mean, talk about feeling ill-equipped. And so, yeah, it is a very scary. And then the next level of terror is, wait. So therapist, you're going to tell me we're going to lift up the hood of my engine, right? We're going to lift up the kimono, and like, I don't want you to open my guts up, because I know there's some scary, dark, bad, evil stuff in here that I have no, number one, I don't know what's in there. Number two, I don't want to know what's in there. Number three, when we find out what's in there, I'm not going to have the tools to navigate what's in there.
And I would think, and I don't want you to know what's in there.
Right.
Right? Like, I don't want you to see what's in there. I don't know what's in there. I don't want you to see it, you know?
Right. That's right.
But you know what's interesting to me too is in all of those descriptor words that you used, I would venture to say you wouldn't have been able to use all of those words on day one.
Oh,
like, I know for me, I could not identify a feeling to save my life. And I remember my sponsor would always say to me, he's like, well, how do you feel about that? And I was like, fuck, I don't know. You know? And then he'd rattle off, well, do you feel this? Do you feel this? And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I feel. But I could have never put that sentence together on my own. I could not identify anything.
So that's such a powerful point, Angela. I literally knew happy, sad, angry, and mad.
Right.
Are probably like, I had like 4 words down.
Mostly mad.
Right.
I knew.
That's
mostly mad.
Yeah. Right. Anger and rage I would throw in there too. I did know rage. But that's part of the journey. One of the initial parts of an EQ journey is growing our emotional vocabulary.
Yeah.
And there's actually a physiological reason why that is. There's actually a brain reason, neurological reason why. And here's what that is so the brain is a you've heard of like an Excel spreadsheet, right? Excel spreadsheet, or like Dropbox, or so it is one of the most amazing organization and filing systems on the freaking planet, right? Is our brain. And as long as our brain can file and organize stuff, it can work on stuff. It can heal stuff. It can grow stuff. But if it doesn't, if it's got all this stuff flying around inside and it doesn't have it's not named, if it's not named, it can't file it.
Right.
So there's a phrase called name it and tame it. If you can name the emotion, the brain can tame the emotion. But if you can't name the emotion, all those free radicals, right, are just bouncing around inside of us. All those chemicals, which are emotions are just chemicals. All those chemicals, those emotions are just bouncing around inside of us, causing us stress and anxiety because the brain doesn't have a name for it. So as soon as we can grow our emotional vocabulary and start to name with accuracy, the more accurate we can be with the emotion, the more effective the brain can start healing and working on it. And now the head, heart, and body can start working on massaging out those emotional knots that have been created in our emotional muscles once we start growing our emotional vocabulary.
That's such a beautiful way to look at it too, because your brain is a filing system, right? And that makes perfect sense. If I can't identify it and my brain doesn't know where to file it, then what the heck are we going to do with it, right? It's just going to be chaos in there. Especially when you think about how many pieces of information our brains are working with on a daily basis. Like, that's insanity.
Well, and we don't even know. We're not even aware of the stuff that our brain is working on.
Not
right?
even close.
So here's another thing that's fascinating. So that was a great observation on your part about the ability to rattle off some of those emotions. I didn't do that in the moment, but that's reflecting back. That's what I was feeling. But here's what's the better that we can get at again. So here's what I'd recommend, encourage folks that are listening is there's an emotion wheel. If you Google emotion wheel, they have pillows and cups and mugs and t-shirts and stickers, but just print out emotion wheel, print it out, stick it up on your refrigerator, stick it up on your bathroom mirror. What you see, you give strength to. What you starve dies. What you see, you give strength to. What you starve dies. So the more your brain can see these different emotions, and now if you don't understand or know the because I didn't know the there's so much stuff I could tell you, Angela. One of the exercises that we did was on an emotion called fulfilled, and I'm like, I have no idea what that is. Like, I know the English word, like I could, but I don't know, like, an emotion. Like, what is that? What does fulfilled feel like? I don't know that I'd ever. Here's another one that I was not familiar with. I read this great book, and one of the first chapters on power. Like, hey, when's the last time you felt powerful? I'm like, powerful? I don't have ever felt the feeling of power or powerful. Like, it was such a fascinating, like, hearing these emotions I didn't have a file for. So again, by growing that emotional vocabulary, it will help us to start making more connections. And again, the better that our brain can file this stuff, the more effective we get. And then the other thing too is grace, patience, and curiosity instead of guilt, condemnation, and judgment. If we can have grace, patience, and curiosity with our emotional growth journey, because what I've realized is grace, patience, and curiosity are lubricants to our engine, our emotional engine. Guilt, shame, condemnation, and judgment are like pouring sand in our engine. It will eventually seize up our engine and prevent growth rather than grace, patience, and curiosity.
Okay, what is the book you just referenced?
Did I reference a book?
Yeah, you said it's a great book, and the first chapter was power.
Becoming a King.
Becoming a King.
Becoming a King is that book. A couple other great EQ books is Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Healing for a Change by Dr. Henry Cloud. And I would probably do it in reverse order. I would do Healing for a Change first by Dr. Henry Cloud and then Boundaries. those two books were absolutely life changing.
I have to make a note because I'll include all of this in the show notes so everybody can
Awesome!
because we
Yeah,
all love books. So
yeah.
I'll be getting that Becoming a King immediately after this podcast is done.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, fascinating. Anyway, fascinating. And the journey is while scary at times, is, I will tell you, and this is going to sound so counterintuitive based on how I just described the beginning of the journey. But as you grow and you start to develop some muscles, you start to learn some emotional jujitsu moves. Now the journey becomes empowering and encouraging. And one of the things I say on my podcast a lot is emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally. Like,
Yes.
think about the hundreds and thousands and probably tens of thousands of people, Angela, that you have helped because of your own addiction.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Who would have thought, like, oh yeah, I'm a bartender killing in LA. One day I'm going to be helping thousands and thousands of people with their addiction. And like, what? Like, but that's, you have empowered through your own addiction journey zillions of people, right? So at some point, the journey transfers from terror and fear and trepidation and horror and all these different things and weak and hopeless to, at some point, it transitions to powerful and strength and empowering and worth it and value and healing and growth. And you can operate your life from a place of peace and strength and like self-assurance and authenticity, instead of this place of, like, for me, my people-pleasing addiction, which drove like every single decision, right? Which is a place of weakness and inauthenticity and control and manipulation and right. So anyway.
Oh, I'm so glad you just said that, because a lot of people pleasers don't understand that, the control and manipulation aspects of that. I hear a lot of people with people pleasing really have this sort of victim mentality, right? Like, oh, woe is me. I can't set boundaries. I can't advocate for myself. But then they get mad at the rest of the world for not respecting the boundaries that they never set. And it's like, dude, that's not fair, right? Like, I can't respect a boundary I don't know you have. Like, that's your responsibility to set the boundary. I can't read your mind.
100%. 100%. In fact, I almost, and thankfully I was on a Zoom, but when this girl, she is gangster, man. This lady, her name is Amy Fiedler, and it's Fiedler, Amy Fiedler. And I think she's on IG. She's a baller. And I follow her on IG, and she's like, I'm like in maybe first grade or second grade in my EQ journey. She is like PhD. She's her. It's like my head explodes every time she does a post. And she told me one time, I've interviewed her a couple of times on my podcast, and one time she told me, she's like, no, but as a people pleaser addict, those are hardcore manipulators. And I'm like, I want to throat punch her. Yeah. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's not true. I don't ever want to manipulate it. Like, I hate manipulators. She's like, okay, let me just ask you a couple questions. She said, how did you approach every single person, stranger and known person, relationship? What outcome were you trying to go for? I'm like, why? I mean, as a people pleaser addict, I want everyone to like me. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So based on that, what did you have to do in order to get everyone to like you? And I'm like, what? No, screw you. I hate you, right? But she was 100% right. I was trying to control and manipulate every single interaction and conversation to get you to like me, because I wanted you to validate and affirm me.
Right.
In my worth.
And how good you are, right? And that's really the thing with people pleasing is, but I'm so good. I'm so generous. But listen, we do this with everything, right? We can do the same thing with money. I was really big in this manipulation when I was younger, with materialistic things, right? Always having the right clothes, the right labels, the right handbags, the right car. And all that was manipulating the outside world. And making you think a certain thing about me, right? I'm going to show you how successful I am. So you'll believe XYZ about me, whatever that successful looks like.
Right.
And that's what all of those behaviors are, right? Like they're
Yes.
all manipulation in their own way.
Right. That's exactly right. That's right. But I feel like that's not why God created us, right? God didn't create, like, he created noble to be noble with my own worth and value inherently. I don't need Angela to determine. Now,
Right.
that doesn't mean that Angela's going to dig me, right? You may not dig me, but whether or not you dig me has no impact or effect on my worth and value.
Right.
Right. So I love this analogy. Someone said, like, this guy gave this homeless guy $100, a crisp $100 bill. And he's like, "Oh, thanks, man." He's like, "Okay, now crumple it up." And so the guy was like, "Well, but it's crisp. It's a nice $100 bill." He's like, "No, just crush it up." He's like, "Okay." Well, he crushed it up. He's like, "Now throw it on the ground." He threw it on the ground. Then okay, now step on it. He stepped on it. Now it's got dirt on it. It's crumbly and stuff. He's like, "Okay, now how much is it worth?" He's like, $100. He's like, "That's you.
Right.
You've gone through some stuff. You've been through some stuff in your life to get where you're homeless right now, but you are still priceless. You're a priceless human being with worth and value, even though you're a little rough around the edges, a little dirty, a little messy hair, but your worth is still priceless." I'm like, man, that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all powerful. What would you say for somebody who is just starting, like listening to this right now, listening to you, and they're like, you know what, I want to look more into this emotional intelligence and emotional maturity. Where would be a good place for someone to start the journey?
So Changes That Heal would be the first book. Again, that would be the first thing that I would recommend. And I'm not trying to promote my podcast, but I'm not a PhD EQ guy. So if that's what your audience needs, that's not, you need somebody else for that. If you're new on the journey, my podcast is great for new, because I literally share my EQ journey with the good stuff and the bad stuff all mixed in there. I'm very raw and transparent. So that would be another, just for those that may be starting in their journey. Another thing would be that I would recommend is it's called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's another book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's another good book. There's another good book called Primal Leadership, which talks about emotional intelligence as well. That's a little thick and heavy, but it's still, if you stick it on the list there. Those are a couple other books as well. There are also assessments. So I'm not, and you don't have to go through me. There's a lot of people that do EQ assessments, and there are a couple. There's truckloads of different kinds of EQ assessments out there now. There's one that I use called EQI 2.0, and it measures people's EQ in 15 different areas. It's a psychometric scientific assessment. So I didn't create this in my basement. Like, big brain researchers and scientists came up with this thing, put it together, and it gives you an actual number of where your EQ is at. And most of us have some areas that we're stronger in, some areas that we're weaker in. I will tell you, this would be the number one place, Angela, that I would start. That most of my clients that I start with, most of them, whether they're big cheese CEOs or they're teenagers, there's teenagers I work with too, is self-awareness. If you don't have the self-awareness, it's really tough to work on anything else.
Right.
So just beginning with some self-awareness. Okay, now where would I begin with self-awareness? So there's an app called Clarity, Clarity, Clarity. It's not my app. I don't make any money off it. I'm not a paid spokesman or whatever for Clarity, but I use it. I recommend it for a lot of my clients, and it asks some really good questions on how are you feeling today, and it gives here are some sample emotions of like to pick from. What led to you feeling that way, right? So it kind of it prompts you with some very simple, basic prompts to just start developing some awareness around your emotions, right? Another thing too that I'd start paying attention to is where in your body are you feeling those emotions? Which I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, but there's this book I don't recommend for any new people, but it's called The Body Keeps the Score.
Ooh, it's one of my all-time favorites.
It's incredible, but it's super intense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is intense. It is intense.
But that's another great one. So our body holds and stores all our emotions and stuff, right? Again, I had no idea, but that book, like it's powerful, powerful. So anyway, those are some ideas for folks to start.
Yeah, I love that. And I do appreciate too that you said start with some self-awareness, because oftentimes at the very beginning of this journey, right, any sort of emotional healing, that's what we're lacking, right? We don't have that self-awareness. We're still very busy blaming everyone else and figuring out how every feeling we have is someone else's fault.
Right.
You know, I feel this because you said this, or because that happened. I made that choice because you did that. Like, everything is about somebody else and what they did and why they caused me to do whatever I did. And that's where you first have to stop, right? You have to really stop looking at everybody else, stop looking at what's their fault. You, your behaviors, your actions, your choices, your feelings are yours.
Right.
And they are fully your responsibility.
Well, and it's important to understand why. Like, why does a victim mindset keep you weak? Why?
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't understand, because
you're giving away all your control. You're giving all your control to all the external things. It's the same thing with addiction, right? It's like I gave all my control to alcohol. Everything in my life revolved around my alcoholism. Alcohol had full control.
Yeah.
I wasn't making decisions. I wasn't weighing risk. You know, I had no power in anything.
That's right.
And it's so disempowering, right? And I think for me, my sobriety from day one was so empowering because I felt that instantly. Instantly, I was like, oh,
wow,
I've got a lot of power here.
Wow.
Like, I didn't realize that I had control of my life, my circumstances, my behavior. I didn't know that. I thought I was cursed. And I came from a bad luck family, and I was going to be a bad luck person, and my life was always going to be hard, and all the bad things happened to me, right? I had that victim mindset. Everything was because of other circumstances.
Yeah.
And when I got sober, I was like, oh, wow, like I've really got full power here. Like this is really my gig to figure out. I get to create whatever ending I want in whatever chapter of my story. I have that power.
Right. Well, and it's as long as I say in my head, if my narrative, if my story is, it's Angela's fault, and it's all of my dysfunctions because of Angela. Well, until Angela chooses to do something about my issues, I'm stuck like Chuck, right? So that's why, you know, and again, all the stuff that you said is 100%, right? So until I take it off of Angela, no, it's I had a role to play in this.
Right.
Now, maybe Angela had a role, but that I can't control what role Angela had in it or not. I can only control my role in the deal. So as you know, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, right? Is that his
one
book,
of my
right?
favorites,
Right. It's like I have to take ownership of my growth and change. It's now, oh, this is fire. And a lot of times, right, our coping mechanisms, our dysfunctions, our survival mechanisms come from our childhood through, you know, it's at some point, right?
Yes.
And so this is something I love telling adults is, and kids too, what happened to us in our childhood is not our fault, but it is our responsibility to grow from.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So I was molested when I was 5. Was it my fault that I was molested? No, it wasn't my fault that I was molested when I was 5. Is that my responsibility to heal from and grow from that happened to me? 100%. Absolutely. It's my responsibility to heal and grow from, but it wasn't my fault what happened to me.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a big differentiation to make as well.
Yeah. We always want to get mad at the people that push our buttons, but the truth is it's my button. and that makes it my responsibility, right? Like you can push the button all you want, but I got to figure out, why is it a button?
Boom.
And that's what I've got to heal. It's not your fault you're pushing. You're not usually pushing it on purpose, but it's my button. That makes it my responsibility.
Right.
I remember this lesson for me really early in my sobriety of, really taking responsibility for myself and understanding how much of a role I played in all of my life and my drama. And my sponsor said to me, we were talking about, I was dating somebody, and of course it went horribly wrong because, I made terrible choices in who I dated for many, many years. And my sponsor was like, and I'm like cussing this dude, right? Like he ghosted me. I was heartbroken and I'm just cussing him. And my sponsor sat there and he's like, are you done? And I go, well, I don't know. And he goes, Angela, he may be all of those things. He goes, but the truth? You picked him. And I was like, oh. I was like, oh my God, I did. But it was this beautiful moment of really figuring out like, oh, wow. Because that's when you start to understand that you saw all those red flags and you continued to move forward with that person, right? Where there should have been boundaries, no-brainer boundaries, like the person just sat across the table and blatantly lied to you and they're lying and you decide to overlook it, right? Or I know for me, I was so broken and I just had no self-esteem and I would always internalize everything as my fault, right? And I'd be like, well, I need to be more patient. He's so busy, like I need to be kinder, like whatever the thing is. It's like, no, he's a freaking narcissistic, pathological liar. Like let the dude go.
Wow. Yeah. Right.
But it's like you start to understand that like you saw all the red flags and you made the choice to proceed, not even with caution, and that was just one of those moments that I was like, wow, these are my choices. It's not, and you hear people say, especially in dating, you hear this all the time. Well, I always attract the wrong kind of person. I'm like, no, you don't. You pick them. You are picking them.
Right.
Because they can be attracted to you, but you don't have to let them in.
Right.
You don't have to invite them in. You don't have to exchange phone numbers. You don't have to have a conversation. You don't have to set a date. You don't have to do any of those things, So
That's right.
but it's fascinating. It's the same way in all those character defects and how you treat people and how you internalize things and you start to grow is understanding that it really starts with you.
Yes. One of the things that I thought was fascinating, and you're sharing there, which is so true. What are we rationalizing? Right. What am I rationalizing? Rational lies. Rational lies. Right. What am I rationalizing in my own life, right? Again, for me, food addiction, sugar addiction, people pleasing addiction, like there's 1,000 questions, right? That can be asked from that question, but like, and then obviously, right, is why. So what am I rationalizing? So do a rationalizing audit of your life. In the different areas of your life, what am I rationalizing? Where am I rationalizing? And then you get into some nitty gritty of why. Why am I rationalizing relationships or drinking or eating or people interactions with me? Right? Where's this coming from? And that's another powerful thing. If you can figure out, in my EQ journey, another powerful tool is the origin story, right? We'd like to do the origin stories of superheroes. Do the origin stories of your dysfunctions. And what I have found, that is a monster step. 30 to 50% of the healing journey is just figuring out, how did it start?
Yeah.
How did it start has been huge, right? So anyway, so great points, Angela. Huge.
What an incredible conversation we've had. I love this. I'm so glad that you came on to talk about this stuff. And I feel like there will definitely be at least a part 2. And I'm going on your podcast too. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Now, I want to say also for everybody listening, because Noble has mentioned so many fantastic resources. So I'm going to have a resource list. I'll put everything together for you in one place. So you'll have all that information, and you can find that at addictionunlimited.com/EQ. And I will link that in the show notes so you can get right there from your podcast app. And Noble, you are welcome to share the resource list with your people as well if you want to do that. I think you just mentioned so many incredible things and incredible books and tools that I just want to put that all together in one spot for everybody so they can get there and use it and make it super easy.
Awesome. Angela, thank you so much for the opportunity. So thankful for the work that you're doing. I know that you've helped so many and are helping so many, and just the iron sharpening that I get from you, it just encourages me on my own journey. So I'm so thankful and can't wait to have you on my podcast too. That's going to be super dope.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.